What is the worst thing you have seen on the internet? I've watched a lot of the gory side of the web and I've seen some stuff and some things. The thing that messed me up the most actually wasn't that graphic, comparatively, but it was so traumatic. Guy in Cleveland goes on a shooting spree and records the whole thing live. He's apparently upset with his girl and is sending her a message or something. He comes across this little old man, just walking down the street, minding his own business. He gets out of his truck, asks the old man to say something for the camera about the girl, and then pulls out his gun and shoots him right in the face. It was heartbreaking. Poor guy had no idea that would be the end of his life. He wasn't bothering anyone. No reason for it except this complete psychopath. I can't watch any of that stuff anymore. A person crying over someone that just got rolled over by a car. Getting rolled over by a car. It was a video from the Style Project of a close-up of the head and neck of a Chechen soldier begging for his life, and as he's doing so the cameraman slits his throat, and what really got to me and haunts me to this day is the sound. How you can hear him trying to talk as his throat is opened. A video on here of a guy getting turned into flying ground meat by a lathe. I always thought that I was pretty desensitized to all the wild and crazy shoot, but just recently I watched a video of this kid, probably 13-15, kill himself with a shotgun while his friends on Discord are begging him not to do it. And to make things worse, his mom walks in and finds him. Gore videos really don't bother me, but all the audible details in that one really messed me up for the rest of the week. A video of a guy getting his arms and legs chopped off, then his head chopped off by a Mexican cartel. 2 kids crying and trying to get down their mom who had hung herself. It was too hard to watch. A young immigrant from India in Canadian factory got his feet stuck in that big cable roll, and that roll got out of control, which smashed the guy to the ground like 15 times until somebody got there and pushed emergency stop. The way his body was looking haunts me to this day. Probably the Mexican cartel video where they flay a man's face while he's alive, or something similar to that. Seen plenty of messed up things, but that unsettled something within me. I was around when that dude on 4chan murdered his girlfriend, and the posts were still coming in and being reposted on Reddit as soon as they did. It was pretty wild. Didn't feel real. I saw a man cry and beg for his life while being decapitated slowly with a knife when I was 14. After the head was off, the place football with it. Those sounds and the fear in his eyes was something that stuck with me. I've seen a lot both in real life. I used to be a paramedic and online, but the worst one I ever saw was the one with a few cartel members killing of a guy whose face they'd skinned completely. They were stabbing and slashing his face and his tongue repeatedly with a box cutter. The Funky Town video I arc. 6 shoot. During a motor race, 2 pit crew guys ran across the road. The first guy barely made it, but the second guy got hit so hard his body was flung up into the air, spinning so fast he was ripped half. These kin comments make me glad I never found LiveLeak or any of the NSFL subs. I once ended up in a Discord server for people with mental disorders, and it wasn't a support group like I thought. It was mostly narcissists and sociopaths trading ideas on how to manipulate people. I left without ever saying a word. A small child, maybe 7, after a gas tanker exploded, burned his whole body. He was still alive and sitting down, shocked, didn't know what to do, occasionally moaning in pain. He didn't even look human. That one bothers me some days. Edit. Great. Now my most popular comment is at burnt children. I discovered Best Gore and LiveLeak when I was really young. I'm not sure where to begin. The live stream suicide videos. They appeared on Reddit last week as a compilation. Horrific and very sad stuff. Felt sick afterwards. Morbid curiosity turned to regret very quickly. Seen a lot of dead people over the years, but seeing the emu get its head stuck in the railing then proceeding to pull its own head off on here left me feeling wrong. I don't remember what was the name, but after a bombing in Middle East there was a picture of a grandpa and his grandchild found dead hugging. Apparently the poor man tried to protect his granddaughter from the bombings. It still makes me tear up. Death by woodchipper. It was industrial sized. You could see the guy's facial expressions change from pain to hopelessness and shock. His skull didn't go down, So he got decapitated and the head bounced around on top of the tines, shredding the skin off of his skull. Private Facebook groups promoting an instruction how to administer enemas using industrial-strength bleach on children to cure their autism. They believe autism is caused by vaccines administering a parasite or killing our body's natural defense against it, and it lives in the large intestines. By pouring corrosive chemicals into their kid's ass, they kill the parasite causing the autism. They proudly post pictures of the worm that comes out, and note their child's improved behavior as they have less frequent outbursts. Doctors point out that the alleged worm looks very similar to intestinal lining that has been burned off, and that the child's lack of outbursts seems similar to that of a child who can't do much, because they're in severe pain as their intestinal lining has been burned off. Yet telling parents to stop doing this to their children is censorship, and doctors are trying to cover the truth. Only Nazis tell people to not give their children industrial bleach enemas. When I was a kid, my mom called me in the computer room where she proceeded to bombard me with a video of Daniel Pearl getting his head chopped off. I had no idea what I was watching until it was too late. By then, it was etched into my mind. It still haunts me. I can handle gore and blood. I'm a nurse, so it's part of my everyday life. But I can't handle human cruelty like that. It will get me every time. A man getting chopped up and his brain being eaten by some birds. It's a tie between one guy, one jar, and the Dnipropetrovsk maniacs. I stopped watching that kind of stuff after that. A video with Mia Khalifa suddenly changing to a guy who was tied up having his head cut off. Who the frick makes these? A kid crying against his dead father's chest after a bomb. The father's eyes were open. I don't look for videos like that. It just popped up. Kids don't belong on the internet. A post on here on Reddit 50/50 of a guy getting his arm stuck in a metal lathe. He then tried to turn it off or something, and while doing so he sucks his whole body in and gets chopped to pieces. A guy freaking a dead dog with his torso open and all the limbs amputated. Thanks BFF for the nightmares. For around 3 months I was on 4chan. This was years ago, like 2010. Anyway, the gore and the other disturbing stuff they posted on B didn't bother me. But one day someone posted pictures of a 5-6-year-old boy being raped. That was it for me. Never went back. The video of that woman basically trying to put her absolutely demolished child's body back together after she had been hit by a truck. A dark web torture fetish video an acquaintance of mine showed me and a friend. A guy was using a knife to leave cuts all over a woman as she moaned and was fingering herself. About 10 seconds and he pulls out his peanuts and starts rubbing it in one of the woman's bloody cuts while she moans. I have a strong stomach as I was a surgical tech in the military, but that was so disgusting and unsettling I really almost felt like vomiting. I saw a drowned man getting pulled out of a river. Holy shoot. His freaking eyes. His skin. I'll never forget that image. Oh, also that one girl who admitted to fricking her dogs and ranted about how dog Shreks is better than people Shreks. That one guy who fricked a horse. Think his name was Mr. Hands. A dude in a group chat sent pictures of a guy ripped apart by industrial lathe, along with laughing emojis. Luckily I only looked at the first of the whole series before deleting them all. Sick psychopath. I work with lathes. All other people in the chat group do too. We don't want to see this and definitely don't think it's funny. Chinese PN website SPN is illegal here, so it's already sketchy. Sometimes get taken over by people trying to sell CP by advertising it openly, so you click on a hot 26-year-old webcamming and instead it'll show you the worst thing you can imagine and you stop tugging it and start worrying about your door being kicked in. It happened to maybe 3 times in 3 months, then I stopped even trying. When I was younger I used to have extreme anxiety and depression, and I was so disappointed when I froze up during a crisis or never stood up for my friends. I started watching gore and horrible accidents so that way I would be prepared for anything, and it actually worked for a while. That was until I saw the Ronnie McNutt video. Mind you, I have seen way worse things online when you compare gore-wise, but something about how human it was got to me. I have heard that ringing on my phone. He looks like someone I would know, and I have thought of doing what he did in the past. It is so easy to distance yourself from car crashes or beheadings, because you can separate yourself a lot easier from it. But this was a lot harder for me. I was sick for a few days after, and it was hard to look at people's heads and not see it burst open with blood drooping down. That video also helped end almost any trace of suicidal thoughts for me. I won't get to see the people who hurt me be sorry for what they did, and the people I do care about will be hurt when I leave them behind. Sorry for the long post, but that is my answer. Take care of yourselves. I read an article where a bunch of market traders beat an orangutan to death for taking fruit to feed her baby. Even now, the image of that poor mother lying face down in the dirt brings a tear to my eye. Humans really are the worst. From veins being cut to people getting killed with machetes, I'd say people as a whole disappoint me the most. I've seen beheadings and executions in all sorts of fricked up nasty shoot, but the one that still stays with me is this. I don't remember how young I was. Maybe somewhere between 12-16. There was this dude fishing for sharks or pretending to fish for sharks, and he opened up the bait box and there was a bunch of kittens in it. He grabbed one and hooked this poor kitten with a massive hook. For sharks, I assumed. He then throws the kitten into the water and it tries to swim back on board the boat crying desperately. I didn't finish the video because I was about to vomit. It pains me just to write this out as I've tried to block that memory. Probably Chase Hospital, a YouTube channel that makes manifestation videos about wanting to get terminal and chronic illnesses like leukemia, severe Ovid, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, cystic fibrosis, and cardiac arrest, and many more. The description usually gives phrases to help manifest their symptoms in a ED mindset. The comments mortify me. People wanting to have sickness and be admitted to the hospital so their crush comes to see them or to get attention mortifies me as a disabled person myself.